This content is brought to you in part by Real Marketing, the only marketing firm recommended exclusively by the Institute. Real Marketing utilizes over 25 years of expertise, and their products are built and customized for you to dominate any neighborhood, anywhere. Go to realmarketingforyou.com. That's Real Marketing, the number 4, you.com. Also, look for past A State of Mind episodes with CEO David Collins as our guest. So hi, Lynne. Welcome to our show. We're going to talk today about lighting design. And Lynne's company is Illuminated Design. And so welcome, Lynne. It's really great to have you.
Hey, thanks for having me. I really appreciate your time today.
Absolutely. I can't wait to talk to the light lady. When I was introduced to you, that's really how that came about. It was, hey, you need to meet the light lady. And so when we talked and I did the initial research that I do, it just really, this is such a, if you will, extremely important, but somewhat mysterious kind of part of overall luxury design. And so one of the things that you have on your website is the definition of light, which I really love because it's actually a triple entendre, right? So light is a verb that means to shed light on an object.
Correct.
But also to give someone greater knowledge and understanding about a subject.
True.
And to give someone spiritual knowledge or insight. So I'm hopeful that today we can cover all three of those topics.
Lighting is my favorite subject, so I can talk forever about it. Yes.
I would hope so. So, all right. Well, let's talk first about a little bit about how you got into, kind of the place where you are now, right? Like your background. How does one, get to be a specialist in this?
Well, I'll tell you, in my case, it's just been years and years and decades of experience. I started in the 80s with my first light lady email on AOL. Those of you who can remember the dial-up, right? And I started working for, in the very beginning, I worked for an electrical representative firm and sold pipe and wire and transformers. And those
all the non-sexy stuff, yeah.
All the non-sexy stuff. Those gentlemen chose to send me to journeyman electrical school. So for the first 2 years of my education into lighting and electrical, I went to school so that I could understand the real technology that goes into at least turning on a switch and what makes a light work.
That's kind of cool. And then fast forward to today, right, where lighting and like when we think about technology, we all think about the computer, right? But we don't think about other aspects of technology that have just grown in leaps and bounds. And lighting is probably right up there, right?
Well, for sure. I mean, if you think about the original Edison-based light bulb with the incandescent color that comes out of it, that technology didn't change for over 100 years. And so as a lighting professional working with incandescents, where people are very comfortable in a warm environment, makes our skin feel good, makes us feel good. Changing technology to LED has been quite a jolt.
So if that's the case, then, so when we think about this kind of transformation from incandescent and the nasty fluorescent, right?
Oh my gosh, yes.
But it's all there, right? Like I've got them in my office, but they're LEDs.
Yeah.
So incandescents went to what next? What came after incandescent before LED? More that fluorescent kind of thing?
Honestly, the compact fluorescent was next, but it had a very short life because of the mercury that was in the bulb. And so it really was not environmentally sound for it to continue on its life. And then if you look at the evolution of incandescence and then in fluorescence and then LED was really created for the OEM market, your refrigerators, your automotive, and all of those. And so when the energy consumption became quite an issue in our country, then the R&D went to LED technology.
So interesting. So, we kicked this off and we got really techie, and that's my fault, right? It's probably not terrible. No, it's my fault because I'm really fascinated by this. And so now we get to the question of why does that matter? Why does, when we think about all these various light options, why does it matter?
Well, let's think about the fact that all of our listeners out there can close their eyes and envision what's happened, which is LED came along. It was a very blue white light. It didn't dim, it flickered. It made all of our surroundings and our lifestyles feel ghoulish, and no one really liked it. So
Right.
what ended up happening is that they started to do the R&D on the chip technology itself. So without being too technical, you have a computer chip and a phosphor that goes over that. The colors that they put in that phosphorus omits the light that comes out of it. So what they've got to do is they've gotten to where they can actually make that mix to give us the color rendering that we have today, which is warmer, more color balanced. The technology for dimming, it's really, really where we want it to be. Also, in the beginning, it was very expensive. And now we have seen that it is a more manageable price point in order to accomplish it residentially.
Well, that's, you have a terrific website, and it's illuminateddesign.com, illuminated design.com. There's a checklist on here that really gets you thinking about the various different types of lighting that can be in a home. And so let's kind of shift gears to what everyone's here to talk about, which is high-end, upper tier, or luxury homes.
Yep.
And, clearly that's your specialty. And so when we think about the options that go into lighting a 10,000 square foot home with lots of different things that people want, like, where do you start?
I'll tell you, we always start with the lifestyle of the client. And, we do lighting design from the ground up, and then also retrofitting existing homes. What we find down here in Naples, Florida, is that when our seasonal clients come back, every year they have light bulbs that have burnt out in their homes. And so they go to the specialty home store and they pick up a light bulb and they change it. Come 3 years later, you walk into a home and you have a warm white, you have LED, you've got fluorescent, you have incandescent, all in the same place. So what I'm finding is that when I go into these homes, the color rendering is off, the dimming doesn't work. Usually the wife is angry because the husband just keeps coming home with the 4-pack and putting them in. And I get this like, please make my house feel better. And that's really what it's about. It's about how do we make our high-end luxury homes feel better, lit correctly. And that's really what we specialize here at Illuminated Design.
All right. So let's unpack that a little bit.
I'm sorry.
Oh, no, that's great.
Okay.
That's great. Let's unpack the lit correctly.
Yes.
What does that mean? And it's tough in a we're talking about something we should be seeing, but I think we can do this. So
yes.
What does the home lit correctly do?
Exactly. So lit correctly in my world really consists of 3 very consistent things. Number 1, you want the color consistency that's coming out of the light bulb to be consistent through your project. You want the dimmability to be accurate, meaning that with incandescence, you would be able to dim it down from bright all the way to dim and off. With LED, it comes down because it's an electronic dimmer. It comes down in stages. So if it's not done correctly, it's like bright, less bright, off, right? Or flicker, off. So when we go in and we try to create an environment that is both lit correctly and dim correctly, then ultimately the house just feels so much better.
All right. So when you say that's interesting, when you try to dim an LED, is that in the quality of the dimmer switch or the quality of the bulb?
So it's really, this is where we've had kind of the Wild West of lighting. We have a chip manufacturer from one country. We have a driver manufacturer, which actually drives the chip technology from one manufacturer. And then we have a dimmer from another manufacturer. And it's all done on an electronic basis. So in the beginning, what we had was no one communicating with each other, which is really where we had some of our biggest issues in the very beginning. Now we actually have the driver manufacturers communicating with the dimmer manufacturers and the chip technology kind of lining up. And when they line up and they're made for each other, then that dimming is just perfect. But we do a lot of testing. We do a lot of mock-ups in our space just to make sure that that dimmer is compatible with the technology that's being put in the house.
Super interesting. Super interesting. All right. So that's LED, but one of the things that your checklist does, and I super highly recommend going and pulling this to our listeners. So it starts with recessed, then indirect, specialty, lighting control, landscape lighting, decorative fixture selection, and then you talk about motorized. So if we're motorized window treatments, so this is that's just fascinating to me that you also put that in with light. So how do these all work together?
Well, I mean, when it comes to motorized window shades or any kind of shading, you have to control the exterior lighting coming into a house in order to really highlight what's happening inside. You know, when we look at a project, we don't just put a bunch of recessed cans in and turn them on and it's lit. We want to create depth and interest and specialty features. So many of our clients have beautiful art collections. So I'm working on a project right now where I have 28 pieces of art that has been purchased through their lifetime. In fact, it's funny because clients that buy art love their art. Every piece of art has a story. So when we go in and we light art, we hear those stories and it becomes very personal to us. So if I know that when my client's husband, who's now passed, they were in Venice, they found this picture, they love it, it's featured above her fireplace. When I come into that house, I want to include that to me lit maybe 50% brighter than all the other lighting in the space at night. So creating depth and interest with dimmers and indirect lighting from coves and backlighting of cabinetry. And when that is all done well and it's dimmed properly, there's just no better feeling in a home. And, you know, Curtis Searle's my business partner, who's really the technological guru, right? You know, LED is a technical product. And with Curtis Searles on board, it makes it so much better. He really does understand that technology and helps us pull it all together for our clients.
So when we look at ways that homes are differentiated, right, in the real estate market, where do you see lighting? Like
the last thing people think about, it's so frustrating. I went into an $8 million house the other day and they had what are called wafer lights. They're these small little wafer LED and they're 4-inch and they're horrible. They're glary on the ceiling. They wash everything out. They're plastic in nature. So there's no way to dissipate the heat from the chip, but they're very inexpensive. And the electrical contractors are putting them in all over town. And as a light lady, it breaks my heart. So I feel like lighting should be honestly decided on at the construction process of the home, at the architectural stage, because then we can not only specify the right product, design it based on the lifestyle, but give a client a real budget of what it costs to properly light a home in today's world.
Oh, you brought up the dollars. So now
you have to consider the dollar. You do.
We do. When we think about this in high-end real estate sales, okay,
yes.
You brought up that people are going to get, like, they're going to get what they get in pre-owned homes, and the way that a real estate professional would guide someone who's taking their home to market.
Yep.
How do they break into this conversation? Like, give them some words to talk about. When you think about the staging and the bringing the home to market, the importance of the lighting.
You know, I've spoken to many real estate professionals, and what they tell me is that when they walk into a prospective home that they want to list for sale, they're looking at the furniture plan or the space plan of how the house has been laid out and how tall the ceilings are in the neighborhood and where the children go to school and how big the yard is and all of those things. they don't ever look up. They don't look to see what's in the recessed can. And if an average 6,000 square foot home has 200 recessed cans in it. So what I would say to your real estate professional is see the home at night. Turn on the lights. See if they're glary. See if the color temperature that's coming out of the light bulb is consistent. See if it washes everything out versus creating a specialty element or a focal point of a home. I can tell you that I have clients. I just had one call me. I did his house 10 years ago. He said that the glass art pendants that I put in his kitchen and I put lighting on the upper cabs and the lower cabs. He said when the clients were in there on their second visit at night, having a glass of wine with them, it's the lighting in the kitchen that actually sold the house. And now I'm doing a second house for him.
I believe that. I'm still kind of perseverating on 200 recessed cans in an average house.
No, it's true. Absolutely.
That's crazy.
Yep.
That is a crazy number. And so
that's not even excess. That's not even in excess. I mean, that is just properly placed lighting.
And so when you say, you said, the real estate folks should look up, but is it really that they shouldn't notice, right? It should be a properly lit home should just feel a certain way, right?
Mm-hmm. But if they don't see
improperly, and conversely, the improperly lit home. So kind of walk through that again, right? So these shadows and things like that, like what is
right.
that?
So I think you're absolutely right. A properly lit home, you shouldn't have to look to see where the light source comes from. It should just create an ambience and focal points in the proper places so that it feels right. And I guess what I'm saying to the realtors out there is go see the property at night, because without understanding how the lighting feels in a home at night, you really won't know what it is your property has to offer, or subsequently what needs to be fixed before they put the house on the market.
Right.
I don't know any homeowners that don't go and look at a home at night, particularly now that it's winter and it's dark at 6 o'clock. People are home more often at night than they are during the day.
So you bring this, I want to kind of shift our discussion into this idea of lighting automation, whole home automation. Yep. So again, like you've been in the business for a long time. I think Moore's law says chip speeds improve or double every 5 years, and now it's every 3 years or 2 years. I feel like you're right in the center of that with lighting. So we went from 100 years of incandescent to a minute and a half with compact fluorescent and super expensive LEDs. And then we started to introduce this idea of automating scenes and things like that. And let's go back to the painting the Venice story. So when you say you're going to light that at 50%, are you doing that as an automation, or is that the person can control that in that particular situation?
Right. So home automation is a whole different animal, right? Okay. So let's talk about where we were. You walk into a house, you have a whole bank of switches. Some of them are on dimmers. Some of them are just regular on-off switches. Home automation from a lighting perspective means that when they wire the house, or even it's retrofit now with radio frequency devices, you can actually preset your dimmers at a preset level so that when you walk in a home and you say, hello, and you hit a button, everything goes to the preset dimming level that you've prescribed it to be programmed for your lifestyle. Consequently, when you're going to bed, you can hit good night. If you're leaving the home for a period of time, you can hit a button that says away, and the last 7 to 10 days of your lifestyle in the home will automatically happen. So that if someone was, say, casing your house to see if you were home or not, they would never know if you weren't home, because the lights are going to come on and off at various times. But I guess the most important thing that I want to say to the realtors out there that see home automation is that because of the technology of LED, the automated systems that were put in even 10 years ago, most of them are not retrofittable for LED. Okay. In some cases, you have to start all over again. So the good news is most of the wires are where they're supposed to be. And it's a matter of just removing modules and plugging new ones in and getting it programmed once you change the technology that's in the ceiling. It's really important to have a professional come out with you to take an assessment so that the client understands what it's going to take to upgrade that so that they can convert their home to a really energy efficient and proper LED system.
Do you see people doing this in your market? I mean, you're in Naples, so you're super high-end luxury market. Do you see people doing this for themselves more so than to sell a home? Like they wait for the next person to do it kind of thing? Or
it's a little, I would say it's a little bit of both, honestly. I work for all kinds of clients doing all kinds of things when it comes to retrofitting homes. So I feel like that, everybody is different and the price point to change those are different based on what's there. So some folks are just going to let the next people do it. And some folks are going to do it. But I will say this, they want to do it. Because if you think about an average of 200 incandescent light bulbs at 75 watts a piece, okay, that's an enormous electric bill, an enormous heat bill, and a very low life light bulb. So you can almost pay for your retrofitting just by using an 11 watt light bulb that produces no heat when it comes to consumption, particularly here in Florida, we have a huge air conditioner bill. So I think it's a very much of a toss up. You have to kind of bite the bullet, excuse my French,
Sure.
You have to be able to make the investment to save some money in the long run and actually pay for itself, depending on how long you actually are here, how long you burn your system for.
Okay, so now let's step outside the house and go into the landscape.
Okay.
We know when we see it, right? We can see a well-lit landscape. Can you give us some tips and hints about how we light a landscape well?
I'll say this. Having a beautifully well-lit yard brings the outside in. It makes your living space longer, taller, especially if you have a pool.
Right.
The reflection of palm trees down here in Florida on a pool are amazing, right? So I think it's really important. I'm doing a project right now. It's on 2.5 acres. And what we're doing is we're actually lighting the perimeter palm trees around the property so that when my client goes outside, he can actually see his property line. So instead of it just being the pool and the palm trees, we're actually lighting the perimeter. So when he sits outside, everything gets bigger. Everything gets, and it's huge. And not only that, but he has 4 small children. So it's very important from a safety perspective that at any time he can see in his yard, not like a blast and floodlight from the house, but actually see in the corners of his space. So security is an issue. And it's totally solved by landscape lighting. They say a well-lit outside, a well-lit home outside deters anyone from trying to come into the yard because they don't want to be seen.
That makes perfect sense. Mm-hmm. So on average, not the 2.5 acre person, but on average, yes. What is the cost to light a yard well?
You're going to look at $250 a fixture. Right. Okay. So I would say for between $3,000 and $7,000, you can do a pretty good job.
And so many people don't do it. We're in this weird real estate market too, right? Where, and I call it that affectionately, right? That I don't mean that in a pejorative way, but the real estate market has inflated homes so much that, when someone's walking into a home that's I'm not in Naples. I'm in Dallas, nice center of the country, kind of a good average. Like if it's $1.5 million or $2 million home, there's not that expectation because that home was $1 million 2 years ago.
Mhm.
And so the things that we expect to see, and this is what I hope to have happen, is that people begin to catch up to the value of their home, right? And begin to do more things that would be expected in a home for that price point. What's the popularity where you are in Naples of the whole home automation? How many houses do you see?
I would say it's probably in the 60 percentile range, right? Anything above 3 million, probably a higher. And it's not just the home automation of lighting, it's the home automation of the sound system, the security system, the locks on the door, all of those things combined. But I also find that with the onset of Alexa and Siri and all the other AI type voice activation, that's our future. Absolutely. Josh AI. I mean, it's kind of scary. We laugh that it's Skynet in our house. But if we think about the fact that I can say, Siri, turn on scene 1, or Siri, say goodnight. And all of a sudden my lights go down, except for my landscape lights are on until whatever we have time. Right. And there's, maybe the step light going to the bathroom in the master bathroom is left on at 10% so that my clients can see going to the restroom in the night. There's so much that can be done with home automation if you really have a professional that understands the lifestyle of their client and can help the programmer create those scenes so that it is seamless. We find more frustration in our clients that have not had their lighting control system programmed properly, that they just get frustrated. So it's very important that they have a relationship with their programmer and their lighting designer so that we can integrate the needs and the wants of the clients so they have a seamless home and it's easy. And if there's any listeners out there that have a challenge with this, please call me. I can connect you with people or we can help you do that.
That's really terrific. And thank you. That's very generous because you're in Naples, right? Mm-hmm. But I'm sure there's a network of people that, when you think about the questions that a real estate professional gets, they really need a lighting designer on their, I'm going to use the old term, their Rolodex, right? Because
I still have one. I'm sorry.
I age myself.
I know. They call it a contact list now, Diane.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Well, look, this was sensational. And first of all, I really love how your website, illuminateddesign.com, really does educate a bit. Mm-hmm. And the idea I think that we want to leave people with is you're super approachable. And I imagine in your profession, most people are, that this is something that you're passionate about, but it really shows up in the lifestyle of the home. And, the Institute teaches all about, photography and the right photography and the nighttime photography, how important that is. Without the right lighting, nighttime photography just doesn't work, right?
Right. It's just glary. One thing I would like to say is lighting design professionals are kind of rare. What you're going to find is when you go to find a lighting designer, you can start at your local lighting showroom in town, and they will probably have a recommendation for you. But lighting showrooms on a whole sell lighting fixtures. Lighting designers understand lighting technology. It is a completely different profession. So if there's somebody out there that needs a lighting designer, we're in Florida. I'm traveling to Michigan on Saturday. We can go anywhere if you need us. Otherwise, I can always make the referral.
Are you part of a national or international organization where there's a list of folks like you, or how does that work?
Yeah. So I would say LinkedIn, believe it or not, is probably your best alternative to find a lighting designer. And you can actually put lighting design right in there and you should be able to find a lighting designer. What we find is that a lot of us work alongside of the interior design societies, ASID, the AIA, which is the architects. So we're kind of blend in with all of those professions.
Well, look, this was really illuminating.
Yay.
I was going to do it again. You know, I was going to do it again.
I did.
Yeah, terrific. And thank you so much for your time. And again, your website's terrific, illuminateddesign.com. Lynne, it was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much. If anyone wants to send me an email, it's lightlady@illuminateddesign.com, and we're here to help.
That's terrific. Thanks, Lynne.
Thank you. Have a great day.